It's the 11/11/16. I just go over the 14 September one more time, 2012. I had been warned by a Norwegian diplomat in 11/12 about coming attack, and there was mentioned a name from the Danish government, also relay on international jobs, right? I didn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was attack in relation, maybe, but not directly. And I didn't know at that time that Clinton was a reason why. I asked the Danish police for protection a number of times in 2010, 11, 12. And particularly that day, I had appointed a time with police station in Esbjerg to talk about other threats and industrial espionage and so on. And that appointment was made days before, and it was a 9:30 appointment in the station in Esbjerg. So I went with my small boy Alex to the police station. We spoke a little, and I showed the policeman a wound I had on my leg. It was 10, 12, and it was from I had an accident in the chairboard riding school where I was falling down over a fence. Whatever this were, the first attack, I don't know. I think the reason why I think it might have been an attack was because I wanted to walk over a small fence, and actually I lifted Alex over it because it was too high, right? I had more than one time unconsciousness in that incident. And the wound kept hurting in 2012, and there's still a scar, and there's still some pain under the scar. This is not a small bruise. Um, then we spoke a little about other cases, and I didn't speak about the Norwegian warning, the diplomacy warning, because that was not the level of the local police. That's normally something about security, intelligence police or defense that has to be aware of these things, right? Then we went home, and I knew when I had a note from local police about protection, I had previous moved the horse we had to eliminate that we had to travel in public traffic to stay more home, so we were more protected. In the afternoon, there was a kind of silent, you could say, desperation, or also a pretty beautiful feeling between Alex and me. We felt something was lost, something was, there wasn't really anything we could do. In the afternoon was a knock on the door. I was pretty unprepared because there had been an investigation on a false claim in Esbjerg commune, but it was put away. It was anonymous, and it was not true, right? So I didn't expect that Esbjerg commune was involved in this kind of top ministerial crime. So they knocked on the door, and outside were two persons. Looked a bit, you could say, people who had had a hard life. And behind them were two weapons in uniform. I had seen intelligence defense police in the area, and also after 14 September, civil defense intelligence. They knocked the door, and because they had the police with them, and I knew that they could maybe walk over if we just closed the door, I couldn't do anything. I tried to calm them down and calm Alex down. I asked them to get a cup of coffee and take Alex's thing in a suitcase and try and take it easy. They did not take it easy. I couldn't calm them down. They were like a raid. They ran around, and they were nervous and loud speaking, and they were not very nice. Alex was screaming, and there's a RT surveillance on the in the apartment that later were laid on the network, and I could recognize all the screaming, and my own voice were covered, but I could hear a little slip on it. Anyway, I felt, because I knew we were in danger, I felt we were in life danger, and I actually tried to hold on to Alex as long as I could to try and tell him if he was going to survive, that I did care, right? So it was a line dance, I would say. Um, then then I can hear Alex scream, "I'm getting cold, help, I'm getting cold." And then I knew there was something wrong. In situation where people get cold in a stressful situation, it can be shock and it can be life-threatening, right? So actually, I went into, he was behind the closed door, and I was standing outside the door, and I decided to go after a confession. So I knew that this was maybe the only time I would have the truth or whatever close to the truth. So I went in and I was completely blinded with a white lie. I couldn't see anything. If this was a kind of psychology barrier or chemicals, I don't know. I have to ask both chemists and psychologists about what it could be. They say different. They have different answer on it. So inside the room, I could see a shadow, and she was sitting on Alex's bed. So I sat down beside her. Alex was laying behind me, placed on his right side, and he was crying silent. And I asked this lady if she was a murderer, and she said with the low A key, yes. And I don't know if it was a murder attempt, we hope. And a dentist, he was beaten by 4 teeth. The picture shows, I don't know if it was a murder attempt, a previous murder, or full murder. I don't know. It's never been good investigated. Then I couldn't see anything, and I went in shock, and they rushed out again, and I was standing in the kitchen and hearing a lot of noise from, I think, fire station car something, and I couldn't see the boy anywhere. I heard a scooter starting up, and there was a white car pulling in and out, and the two women went to a car, kind of low station car in dark color, and I couldn't see Alex anywhere. They seemed to joke a little bit, which was pretty strange in the stressful we had been in. The police were standing ready with 2 arms, and I was just shocked. So, and then I could feel the physical shock coming in over me. So I called United States, and that is the call used in the Benghazi hearing. I called, "I am in danger. I fear for my life." That is the call used against Mrs. Clinton. I also called the dad of the child and told what happened, and he was unaware, not prepared, and had nothing to do with it. And then I called Ekstrabladet, which is a newspaper that previous has run some pretty good daring stories, and they took also Statesman. They wrote a story, maybe a cover story, about a boy who was handicapped called Beatrice. I don't know if there's any direct connection, but some of the pictures shows a small boy or girl in a riding stable. I don't know if it could be Alex in a previous time. So after that, a month after, I searched for my boy, and I was not eating, and I was in shock, and I was crying, screaming. I was 2 times in Copenhagen to trace down the links of this crime. I had first sight of organized crime, of course. Then I had sight of sexual crimes and kidnapping, and then I had sight of previous family relation and so on. So I was hardworking in my grief, and the one neighbor said to me, I had never heard the boy scream like that, and she was frightened. The whole building was scared, and I had to comfort small children of Alex's friends.